It's time for the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is the voice of the working class, Rick Smith.
And welcome, brothers, sisters, working class heroes. This is the Rick Smith Show. Thanks so much for being here. Today on the big program, lots to get to, lots to talk about. What an interesting weekend. What an interesting weekend it was. We now find out the trucker freedom rally from Canada, the attempt to recreate it here with all kind of grievances, all kind of anger, mostly right-wing talking points funded by right-wing money. But hey, why not? The People's Convoy, as they are calling it, going to kick off, I guess, on the 22nd, somewhere in California. They're saying at the Adelanto Stadium. That is going to go all the way across the USA until it gets, well, to Washington, D.C., some 2,600 miles. And all along the way, they're going to be jamming up cities on the way. And good. You know what? I'm happy they're taking the southern route. You know, jam up those cities in New Mexico and in Texas and Oklahoma. Go that route and jam everything up. Because there's nothing people love more than traffic congestion. There's nothing that people love more than way too many trucks on the road. That should get the American people all fired up and happy. Look, you know, the right wing views this as a moment. They view this as a moment to take advantage of what they think happened in Canada. Again, they've told themselves that what happened in Canada was you know, the entire country had enough. When you talk to the people who actually live in Canada, it's a small fraction, and that small fraction has always been, well, the friction part. They've always been the ones on the fringe. They've always been out there. This just gave them a rallying cry, and a lot of money and a lot of organizing power from the U.S. came in to help. This seems to be the line that I'm getting from people who live there, that this wasn't truly a homegrown, kind of like we're trying to recreate here. Now, look, there's enough crazy people in this country, especially in the trucking industry where I've spent more than 30 years. There's enough anger out there for any reason. And, you know, what I find interesting here is the mandates. You know, there are all these onerous mandates that evidently people, okay. Why are you having the big convoy? Oh, yeah, mandates. Yeah, the vaccine mandates. You know, the mandates that don't exist. The federal mask mandates, you know, that don't exist. I don't know where you live, but in my neighborhood, handfuls of people are wearing masks. That's purely by choice because they don't want to get the virus. I am now finding people who are getting it more and more. And look, it's because we've now got it in our head, hey, it's Omicron, it's not a big deal. People aren't dying. We'll get through it. Well, I'll tell you, my entire family, what's left of my family, they all have it, and they are all struggling. Now, you know, my thoughts are with them. I'm hoping they get to the other side. But they ain't happy. This isn't the flu. This isn't the sniffles and a cold. This is something that's wiped them out. And as I said, I'm with them. I mean, I want them to pull through. I want them to get to the other side and be able to go, yeah, it was not a big deal, even though it took 2 weeks to get through it. But here, the big trucker rally, they're gonna start honking their horns, honking for freedom. I guess that's coming. And it's, you know, a cornucopia of conservative crazy. You know, all of these now made-up groups, the Unity Project, American Project, advocates for civil rights, U.S. Freedom Flyers, the American Foundation for Civil Liberties and Freedom. And, you know, of course, you're going to have all your crazy religious groups who are going to throw into that. It's going to be great. It's going to be fabulous. It's going to kick off, on the, I guess I keep getting conflicting reports. first it was the 22nd, and then I'm seeing that to be it. And then I've seen the 23rd. I guess, is there the 22nd? There's going to be a big shindig. I'm thinking that's how it's kind of going to work, where they're going to do their speaking and maybe start dripping out. But also, they're going to head out towards Arizona on Wednesday, I guess. Thursday, they'll be in Arizona, I guess, still, which I don't know why you're taking so long. Then into Texas on Friday. So we'll have fun watching the convoy, and then we'll get to hear the reports of how there's 100 million trucks. Gate to gate, man. There's 100 million of them, and everyone's on, clogged up every artery, and they're all honking, and it's all, it's going to be the greatest thing ever. I can't wait to hear right wing, the blather machine go on. But what I find interesting is these groups are in it, and they're making a lot of money off of this, because this is what the right wing infrastructure was built for. This is what taking over talk radio was built for. This is what Fox News and OAN and Newsmax and all of the cable news dominance that the right-wing money machine has to push this kind of divide and conquer. This is that moment. Which side are you on? This is that moment of I can easily pay half the working class to murder the other half. And as I was looking through some of the groups, I came across one that it's the Great American Patriot Party. Because who could be against the Great American Patriot Party? They are now funding the American Trucker Freedom Fund, which means you give them money and they give it to the other thing. And they're supporting the American Trucker Freedom Convoy, which I'm not sure if it's the same as the People's Convoy, or if this is going to be a different one. They haven't given me any information. I have gone through and tried to sign up. Their code of conduct, though, kind of stopped me. I'm reading through the code of conduct, and this is great for anyone who spent any time watching the videos from the Freedom Rally in Canada, with the kind of things that they were saying and some of the stuff that went on. I got a kick out of the fact that in their code of conduct, they will not tolerate any harassment of convoy participants in any form. None. Now, I'm wondering if this is the participants, if they can be as harassing, as intimidating, and homophobic, and misogynistic, and all that as they want to be, and it's other people can't be. I'm not really sure. Language, a little vague. But they say that they're hell-bent on providing a harassment-free convoy experience for everyone, regardless of gender identity and expression, age, sexual orientation, disability, physical appearance, race, ethnicity, or religion. And the first thing that came to mind, evidently these people don't know truck drivers. Evidently there's not a truck driver in the bunch. Because, well, that, if you listen to the CB, that's basically it. Now they say harassment includes offensive verbal comments related to gender, age, sexual orientation, disability, physical appearance, race, ethnicity, religion. They also go into deliberate intimidation, stalking, following, harassing, photographing, recording, sustained disruption of talks or other events, and inappropriate physical contact. That's all one sentence. That could have been broken up better. So maybe a truck driver wrote that. I'm not sure. But you go into all this stuff, and if anyone's ever listened to the CB or participated there on Channel 19, that's basically all you hear. Everything written there, that's what you hear. So I doubt this was actually done by a truck driver, but hey, you never know. And the thing that gets me is I look at this American Trucker Freedom Fund. What a beautiful website. It really is. You should take a look at it. It's beautiful. Lots of America. Beautiful pictures of trucks. Beautiful pictures of the flag and the Constitution. And it's a gorgeous site. Red, white, and blue. Mom, apple pie, God, country, Jesus, guns, babies. All of that stuff. It's all right there. And the weird thing about it is you look at it and you can see this is a DC This is a DC construct. Someone in DC did this, and yes, the Great American Patriot Party. That's where they're located, so not surprising. But you look at this and you go, on some level, is it not frightening how easy it is to make something look so official? Like, hey, there's something really going on here. This is, the truckers are coming together. They're going to come together and they're going to fight for, on their website, pipeline. Evidently, the truck drivers want a pipeline. Not sure what that has to do with the mask mandates or the vaccines, but hey, don't worry about facts. They want energy independence. Again, not sure what it has to do with the mask and the mandates, but they're against big tech censoring them, even though big tech is how they got their website to me. Just kind of throwing that out there. They're against agricultural regulations, and they hate big pharma. And you go, okay, I'm still not sure how that has to do with the vaccine mandates, but all right, you got your thing. So I went on Twitter to find the Great American Trucker Freedom Fund, and one of the tweets that they put out was they were looking for truckers. They're going, hey, are there any actual trucker drivers out there who might want to talk to the media? And you go, but hold on. I thought you were the Truckers Fund. I thought you were it. And the reality is it's not. This is all show and tell. This is all a game. This is political theater. And this is what the right has understood masterfully for decades, and the left never got. The left wants to be purist. They want, you have to hold to your line or you're going to get canceled. The right understands political theater. They understand how to entertain and enrage and keep people enraged in a direction, well, at the left. Democrats. Everything's Joe Biden's fault. Everything's Democrats' fault. And you ask them, they'll tell you. For instance, I ran into an old guy the other day in a parking lot. Happened to stop at a store, decided, hey, I saw this guy pull in with this giant dually, this big Ford F-1650, the giant tires, fifth wheel in the back. I mean, this was a $100,000 truck if it was a dime. And there it was, this beautiful, incredible piece of almost art, if you will. An amazing bit of American muscle and ingenuity and manufacturing prowess. There it is, this rolling monstrosity adorned with Trump paraphernalia. It had everything. The giant F. Biden Trump 2024 flags hanging from the poles in the bed. I mean, there were two of them. They were back there. And across the windshield, like a foot, like an entire foot across the top of the windshield, where the little blue area usually is. You had the big Trump 2024 sticker, right on the windshield. I mean, just massive, everything, stickers all over it. You name it, he had the sticker. This guy not only bought the hat and the T-shirt, he got the flags, the stickers. He got everything. He got the jumbo pack. I'm sure that they've tapped into his retirement fund to be able to get to this. And I, being curious, because he parked a couple of spots from where I parked, I had to ask. So I said, hey man, I'm just curious. And I go, why? Why the mobile shrine? I'm curious. I don't want to get into politics. I'm just curious. I don't want to get into an argument. I'm curious what the thought is. What is it that got you to purchase all of this stuff? What is it that got you to purchase all of this stuff and then to slap it on this $100,000 plus vehicle? What got you to buy the stuff made in China, mind you? Because the flags were made in China. Yes, they were. What got you to do this? What is it that made you wake up one day and go, you know what? I'm gonna make a statement. What is it that did that? And the thing is, in the 10 minutes that I stood there and talked to him, and look, once he realized that I wasn't attacking him, I was just curious. I said, look, I don't have a dog in the fight. And this is, I kind of lied. I said, I don't have a dog in the fight. I'm just curious why someone would do this. Because this is politically new. This kind of stuff I've never seen before. The Trump phenomenon has been all about in-your-face extremism, and I'm just curious what made you, finally, get to this point. And in the 10 minutes that I talked with him, all I got was, your basic, right-wing talk radio talking points. Freedom and liberty and, returning the nation to its rightful glory and, all kinds of platitudes and no substance. And I said, look, I don't want to argue about, anything. I'm just curious what it was that made you think like this, that made you go, hey, I want to do this. And I'd asked, I said, have you ever done this for a candidate before? I go, because look, I've never put a candidate's bumper sticker on my vehicle. Never done it. I don't put stickers on my cars. I don't know why. It's just something it seems like energy wasted. And I know I'm supposed to. I know we're all supposed to, do that, but I don't. And I'm curious why people would go, not just from a simple sticker, which a lot of people do, and that's great, but to just obnoxious, just a rolling bit of just obnoxious, in-your-face obscenity. And the obscenity right there. And he went in, as we were talking, he said, look, he was a pro-union guy. He's retired. He's in his 70s. He's a pro-union guy. He was a Democrat his whole life. And went into how the Republicans are no different than the Democrats, how this whole Trump movement was about burning everything down and going back to freedom. And I just kind of again I keep asking questions because I'm interested in what the guy's got to say, because this guy is, you can see as he's talking, he's viscerally angry at something. And again, I go back to this. Did you ever do this for another candidate? I mean, you go back to Reagan. Did you do it for Nixon? Did you do it for Ford? Did you do it for Carter? Did you do it for Reagan? Were you a Reagan Democrat? No, he got through the Reagan years while still voting for a Democrat. Did you do it for Clinton? No, hated him. Did you do it for George W. Bush? No, of course not. Did you do it for oh yeah, there we go. That guy. Seems that guy, the 44, kind of got him interested in politics. And I didn't make a bit out of it that, now I feel that it really is all about race. That's what it seems about, because this guy looks like he's doing really well. He has been a winner in our economy. I'm sure he's got Social Security. He's got to be doing well. Got a $100,000 truck he's rolling around in. Probably had $300 or $400 worth of Trump paraphernalia flying or stuck or hanging from his $100,000 vehicle. He's got to be doing at least okay, right? And the only thing when I walked away, the only thing I could come up with is it's about race. It's about what's been fed to him, because it's not where he lives. It then comes back to, the talking points that he kept spewing. The fact that this guy's mind was infected with right-wing blather. All of the grievances that you hear daily and that you're inundated with daily is what this guy was concerned about. Honestly believed our cities are burning. Honestly believed that the borders are being overrun by Al Qaeda, his pronunciation, and that we got to take the country back in the right direction. And when we started talking about just other things, it really it stuck with me that no one's ever reached out to this guy and tried to present a different side. And I hope he's listening tonight, because I did say, hey, I appreciate your time. Thank you. I'm gonna use our conversation in my opening, because I think it's important. I think there's an opportunity to reach people, because, I do believe that had I spent another 10 minutes with him, maybe we could have talked about some issues that we would have agreed on. But in that moment, my mind was, what would make you do that? What would make you want to do that to this vehicle? And why now? Why that guy? A billionaire who's never cared about the working class in his life, but has started talking about it. And this is where I've been saying for years, all the years I've been doing this show, Democrats have got to go back to their roots in talking to working class voters, especially in rural areas. Got to talk about how you're going to make their lives better, how we're going to bring jobs back, how we're no longer going to be the party of neoliberalism and an open border free trade, how we're going to actually create jobs. And I think Joe Biden is doing that. But it's got to be the entire party moving in that direction. And now finally you're seeing some strategists going, maybe we should talk to the working class. Maybe we can bring the country somewhat back together by talking to the working class. Understand the reason the right wing spends so much money on social media, on radio, on television. Why do you think they spend billions and billions of dollars creating cable news programs and funding talk radio? And look, today, social truth, or Truth Social, that's it. Donald Trump's Truth Social is evidently now available in Apple stores. It's the official launch of Truth Social. Now, granted, last week when I downloaded it, was terrible. Buggy, the same 5 people posting the same idiotic nonsense. And for $30, $28.99, I can get a blue check, so that we can get rid of that grievance that Twitter doesn't give me a blue check. Why do they do that? Because they understand talking to people. And if they can get their people and bring more people, they're going to control the narrative. The left has never done this. They've never built the infrastructure. You don't see any left-leaning people going, you know what, we should have left Twitter, or we should have left Facebook. The right's doing it. The grievance machine, they are actually doing it. And look, I think it's going to be a disaster. I think it's going to flop because it's going to be poorly run. But those people will stay, and they will pay because they're loyal to what's being sold to them, because they believe, like this guy did, they believe that even as a billionaire, even as somebody who is out there as Trump has been, that they care about the working class. So for me, the message for Democrats, you better wake up to the reality that the working class is listening, and you better have something to say. That's simple for me. Love to hear your thoughts. You can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Going to take a quick break. When we come back, Michael Sonato is going to be here from The Guardian to share some thoughts on his most recent piece on inflation and, wow, the skyrocketing rents. And I got some reasons why I think they're going up as well. Quick break, right back after this. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. We're working people have the talk.
I took 2 years of electric in high school, and I was the only girl in the class there. Here, I'm the only girl as far as installers go. I'm a single mom, too. I joined the union because it gave me options for health care and life insurance so that I know my son's taken care of. I like what I do. Like, this is the best job I've ever had. You think solar panels is more like California. You wouldn't think Appalachia would have any. It would be smart if the government would invest more in clean energy resources.
From the steel mills of Pennsylvania, to the auto factories of Michigan, to the modern makers movement, manufacturing makes our nation great. I'm Scott Paul, president of the Alliance for American Manufacturing. We bring business and labor together to advocate for policies that everyone can agree on. Together, we can strengthen manufacturing and create good-paying American jobs. Help us keep it made in America.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So over the weekend, I was, my kids got me hooked on these Instagram videos, and some of them are TikTok, some of them are a bunch of stuff. So I've been flipping through these videos and watching all of these rich people talking about, hey, you could be a millionaire, and how to be a millionaire, and all the things that it could take. And I happened to come across one with the Yankees player, Alex Rodriguez. And he was talking to another rich guy about where they invest their money. And it, almost like it was planned in unison. The guy goes, so Alex, where do you invest your money? And they both said in unison, red states. And the reason that red states was the answer is because, well, as Alex pointed out, less regulations, less, snoopy people looking into your business, and more opportunity. And I would argue because of that, and what he said that he does, him and his investment group, they are buying up as many properties as they can, and the number that he threw out there was anywhere between $100,000 per door up to $150,000 per door. You find out that this former baseball player and his buying group own over 38,000 units across red states. Now, again, he's just one in a huge number of these buying groups that have been doing this, and you wonder why the rents are skyrocketing. I got to think this buying up by Wall Street, these private equity firms, has to do something. But no. My right-wing friends, my blathering friends on the radio on the other side of the aisle say, no, all Joe Biden. All Joe Biden. And here to share some thoughts on, well, what the problem is and why the problem is, I've asked Michael Sonato to come talk with us. Michael is a labor and economic justice reporter over at The Guardian. He's got a new piece out titled Renters Across U.S. Face Sharp Increases, Averaging Up to 40% in some cities. Michael, thanks for taking time for us.
Thanks for having me on, Rick.
So 40%, that's insane. I mean, that's just completely insane. And my first question is, why? How is this legal? How is this possible? And why?
Because there aren't rent control laws in place, pretty much anywhere, just on local levels, in some places, but particularly in places like, Florida, in cities like Texas or Georgia, which rents are skyrocketing the most in the country right now. There aren't those rent control. So basically, a landlord can increase the rent once the lease expires however they want. They can double it, they can triple it. And you see a lot of landlords are shocking renters when they get a lease renewal. Normally, maybe it's 5% around there for every 1 year, but now for no reason, there's nothing done to the apartment. There's nothing, no new amenities or anything. It's just, here's your new lease. If you want to stay here, you're gonna have to pay an extra $400 or $500 on top of your rent that was already fairly affordable. So, half the country is paying a third of their income towards rent. Half of the renters. There was a report out today by CBS News, 500 cities across the U.S., the average home price is $1 million or more. It's just ridiculous how much rent is increasing around the U.S. and how unattainable buying a home is, especially for people my age and even younger coming up. We're in a completely different world and a completely different market than our parents. It's the world run by Wall Street and, like you said, real estate investors and the wealthy that are using real estate and concentrating their control over it to skyrocket prices and to produce income that they don't produce any labor for. It's just passive income, and it's like you've seen it. Every self-help financial become a millionaire is just a scheme through real estate, doing it through real estate, and that comes at the backs of extracting wealth at the people who can't afford homes, or don't have property and have no choice but to rent in markets and cities where they have to work in order to work in the based on their education or receive any sort of salary to make a living wage. And it's just a devastating consequences. I've spoken with a lot of renters that are just shocked and disappointed and having to move further out of their urban centers because they're getting priced out.
Yeah.
And that just cascades into different aspects of their lives.
And again, I look at this and you go, all of this is kind of predictable. We've saddled a generation with massive student loan debt so that they don't have the income to be able to buy. We've gotten away from government policy of building lower cost affordable housing. And then you've got these private equity funds that we've given so many tax breaks and so much money to. That now they have all of this cash and they want that passive income that you hear about on these videos all the time, getting someone else to buy your home. And I can only think that we're in the process of recreating the old company towns of yesteryear, only doing it on a national scale and having it done by these private equity firms.
Yeah, absolutely. And the consequences are, we're living in smaller apartments that cost a lot more. It doesn't take a lot of money to build these places. They're poorly built. In a lot of cases, they're poorly maintained. Renters don't have very few rights or recourses for when landlords wrongfully evict people, or when landlords don't want to do something, and even when landlords do break the law, police aren't. How many times have you seen videos of police forcefully evicting people, but you never see, it's unheard of that a police is doing the same thing with a bad landlord or a slumlord or, someone who is taking advantage of marginalized communities or in markets where, people don't have any other choice for housing.
Yeah, I had a friend who lives in Orlando, or lived in Orlando. He ended up moving back to Ohio, but his landlord came and said, here's the new lease, and his rent doubled. It was 100% increase over the year that he had before. And he's like, I could barely pay what I was paying you before. Where do you think double is coming? And this is where, at some point, doesn't this have to break to where people are just going, I don't have the money, and these places stay vacant? I mean, I keep hearing my friends on the right talk about the invisible hand and the free market and all of this stuff, but housing is one of those things that you got to have. There's no ability to walk away and go, nope, screw it, I'm going to be homeless. I'll take the kids and we'll live under a bridge. That's not an option. So the free market argument isn't one there. But at some point, the ability to pay, doesn't that have to, play into this where nobody has the money, so nobody rents these places?
It's getting to the point, where I think evictions are going to be more common, or a lot of these the housing that's even available is just going to go to wealthy people who can buy an extra apartment or buy an extra house, and continue increasing the housing costs for everyone else and displacing people where they're going to be more compact living. People are living with roommates, living with families. There's been all sorts of statistics that people under 30 are living with their parents for much longer, and that's because they can't afford to move out, and wages are remaining stagnant. The minimum wage hasn't budged federally. Even with the marginal wage gains we've seen, that's not keeping in pace with inflation. You're not getting 40% or 20% more of your income. That's just not happening. People aren't experiencing that, but the cost of living is increasing, so that rent burden is going to become more and more. People are going to have to take on more debt to one of the people I spoke with, they said they were one emergency away from getting evicted. So people are already scrounging to afford rent, and I think it's going to just become more of a bigger issue, and people are going to have to are going to either be forced to move out and have to commute longer, adding to transportation costs and things. It basically, the saying, it costs more to be poor. It's just going to cost more to compensate for all those different things.
Sadly, I think you're right. You listen to the Rick Smith Show here with Michael Sonato. He is a labor and economic justice reporter over at The Guardian. You can check out his work over at theguardian.com. We'll get links out on social media. You can take a look at his stuff. Now, in looking at this, and I think you hit on an interesting thing. Wages haven't gone up. Minimum wage hasn't gone up in, 12 years now. We're seeing a lot of labor strife, a lot of worker actions. As I said, we're seeing kind of the recreation of the company town, but also I think we're starting to see workers who said, we're being squeezed from every angle. Something's got to give, and it looks to me like the coffee shops are the new coal mines. We're going to have coffee shop wars now, as we're 100 years ago we had coal wars. Everywhere I look, there's a coffee shop about to go on strike. Starbucks now over 100 places are trying to organize. Starbucks is firing people again. This seems to be people going, hey, I can't afford my rent. I got to get it from my labor. And this is where this fight seems to be coming up next. What are you hearing?
I'm optimistic in that way where I don't think anyone was expecting the Starbucks organizing when it started in Buffalo a few months ago to explode the way it has. And, it's going to continue to grow. But like you said, Starbucks is aggressively opposing this. And unfortunately, the state of labor law is on their side, where yesterday they fired one of the union organizers in Buffalo. And after, they fired 7 workers all at once in Memphis for, organizing a union. And of course, Starbucks denied it. And I'm sure they have, or they will deny that this firing yesterday of the Buffalo worker was connected to retaliation. But, and unfortunately, it'll take months for the National Labor Relations Board to, make a ruling on that. And, it's not going to make that worker whole. And what the attempt is to try to stop the flood of organizing and scare workers from forming a union and other stores from getting to that point. The workers in Arizona, they voted in an election, and the NLRB impounded the ballots because Starbucks called for a review of which has been frivolous at this point. They did it in Buffalo, and the NLRB ruled that they had no, merit in trying to argue that the workers couldn't unionize store to store. So they're paying Littler Mendelson thousands and millions of dollars to try all these different tactics. And younger people that are working in these Starbucks stores are standing up and saying, are holding protests against these firings. I think it's just going to cascade more and more. And, I'm anxious to see, where it goes, and hopefully the General Counsel with the National Labor Relations Board actually takes some actions to instill penalties on Starbucks for their actions throughout this whole organizing effort.
Now, while I'm hopeful that, like you, the NLRB actually does something, I like the fact that there's actually talk of going back to direct actions. There's a coffee shop in Detroit that's going on strike to win union recognition. I think we've got to go back to those days where the laws aren't helping workers. The laws aren't doing what they're supposed to do. We're not enforcing the laws, and they've been so badly perverted over the last 70 years that I think we have to go back to the kind of direct action that you're seeing the right try to do with these trucker rallies. Now, granted, I think the trucker rally people are crazy and all in it for the money and the grift. But there is some grassroots organizing going on because there's anger and there's discontent. I think workers have got to come to this mentality that, hey, we're getting screwed from every end. We got saddled with massive debt. Jobs aren't paying anything. Now they're throwing us out of our apartments. We've got no retirement security. There's no health care. All of this stuff at some point has to come to a head where the working class goes, screw it. We're not getting you your coffee. We're not cleaning up your mess. We're not doing this anymore until we get the dignity and respect we deserve.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's a big question that the labor movement is trying to figure out and has to begin answering on. How do workers organize unions in the face of, right now the PRO Act is, there's no, clear path to getting that passed in the near future right now. What do we do in the meantime? And with all this, the sentiment of workers being dissatisfied and treated poorly throughout the pandemic, how do we tap into that energy and those sentiments and organize workers for real impactful change in unions and for concrete demands like wage increases, getting paid sick leave in this country finally. We still don't have health care for all in this country, even during a pandemic, and we're the only industrialized nation with these issues, and it's kind of ridiculous. And poll after poll shows these policies are popular, but how do we take that popular sentiments and fight back against wealthy and corporate interests lobbying to stop any sort of progress and win it? Yeah. What's it going to take?
Yeah, no, I see. We've been trained like Pavlovian dogs to think of this in terms of right and left. It's the Democrats versus the Republicans, and then there's hey, they're all the same. When the reality is the fight, as it has always been, is top and down. It's up versus down. It's the wealthy versus the rest of us. It's corporate special interest versus the workers. It is capital versus labor at its essence, as it always has been. And what's happened in this country, like in every other time, you've got that old divide and conquer. The Jay Gould, I can pay half the working class to murder the other half. And this is what we see, right out in front of us.
Yeah.
So let me ask you a last question, because I want to go back to the rent thing real quick. Back during the Obama years, when we were throwing people out of their homes because they were being foreclosed on with all the robo-signing nonsense. And fortunately, Marcy Kaptur, the congresswoman from Ohio, said, hey, maybe you should make them show you the documents before they throw you out of the house. There was a movement of the Home Defenders League and people who were organizing around, when they came to evict you, pack the house full of people and stop the evictions. Is there any kind of movement that you see or things that you've heard that maybe this kind of thing can happen where people are going to go, no, I can't afford these rents and I can't afford to move. We're not moving.
Several months ago when the eviction moratorium ended, I did see some, I think, I don't remember the location exactly, but there were instances of tenant organizations and renter advocacy groups doing that to prevent evictions. There are some good groups out there in New York City, in LA, and Kansas City has a really good one. But unfortunately, it's another thing. It's very difficult to organize people, in those ways. It's a scary thing for people to do. And that's just like one of the things that organizers and community organizers need to really tap into and get around. Like, what do we do in response to these soaring rents and how people are being treated, and what is it doing to communities and cities and things like that. So I haven't seen anything start to kind of explode towards that, but with everything that's been going on in the pandemic, I wouldn't be surprised if in a few months, we're at a point where we do start seeing that.
Yeah, at some point.
And I hope we do.
No, at some point it's got to happen. But Michael, I appreciate the time. Great work. Keep it up. I look forward to having you back again.
Thanks, Rick.
Thanks so much, Michael Sonato. He is the labor and economic justice reporter over at The Guardian. We'll get links out on social media. I can check out the work that he does there. But the reality in this is pretty simple. And we've been talking about this for a while. This is going to come down to people finally saying, had enough already. Had enough. We're going to stand up, speak out. We're going to demand change. This is the moneyed interest in this moment, basically kicking people while they're down. Look, I understand when costs have to go up a little bit because you've got costs, but when you have these buying groups, and I'm picking on Alex Rodriguez right now because, well, that's the video I saw. The fact that he owns 38,000 doors. that 38,000 families are paying him between $900 and $1,200 a month. That his buying group came and sucked up all these houses, and almost heavily leveraged. They keep rolling over the debt, so it's basically on paper, just keep servicing that debt. The bankers love it because they get their interest. The buying group, they love it because they're getting $900 to $1,200 a month on something that would cost $400 for an average family. So they're pocketing, think about it, 38,000 times, $500 a month into your pocket. That's a huge amount of money. And you see it in every community. So-and-so buys houses. This is all backed and funded by these private equity groups. John just didn't decide I'm going to buy every house I can get my hands on. They're buying up every house that they can get their hands on because they know once they have the majority, once they have a sufficient number, they can make the price anything they want, just like the old company store, just like the old company towns. You go back and you learn about those company towns where you worked for the company, they gave you, a wage, and then they deducted, your health care, your tools. You had to buy stuff from the company store on script. The rent prices were set by and could be changed whenever. And when recession hit, when economic downtimes hit, the owner didn't suffer. The head of the company town, they didn't suffer. They passed that pain down to the renters, increasing their rent, increasing the cost of their food and their tools and their health care. And, I've said this a bunch of times over the last couple of years, that they are trying to recreate the idea of a company town. I hear people, no, Rick, you're wrong. Company towns are this. No, the idea of the company town, that you work for the company. You got a credit card that you're in debt to, that you're paying interest to. You got a mortgage sometimes. Now it's rent. And they could throw you out of that anytime they want. This is why I've been saying for years we need stronger organizing in the labor movement. Not just to fight for better wages, hours, and conditions in the workplace. Definitely do that. But also policies that encourage investment in moderate income housing. My grandparents, when they got married, my grandfather came back from World War II. They got married for the same reason that a lot of people of that generation got married. They had to. And the first child came like 5 months afterwards, because the first one, the old wives' tale, could come at any time. They started off homeless, living in my grandfather's car. And in their lifetime led a very solid middle-class existence. But the home that they bought and they spent the vast majority of their life, they raised their children, eventually me, and they died in, was funded by government investment. The Levittown kind of ideas, where these planned communities came up of modestly sized homes. I think their house was 1,000, 1,100 square feet, brick bungalow, looked just like the one next to it, and the one next to it, and the one next to it, and the one next to it, a whole carbon copy of them, but affordable. The idea being that you have a solid place to live, and then you can go and participate in the economy. The idea back then is your rent, your mortgage, your housing expense, no more than 20% of your income. Now you hear these stories of people paying 70, 80, 90% of their income just, and I'm not exaggerating. There's something wrong with the fact that we don't have policy to come in now and say, you know what? We're going to have to start building these kind of homes. And we're going to have to make stipulations that, sorry, you can't sell to a private equity firm. Sorry, you can't sell to somebody who's going to have more than one. With the direct idea being, you know what? We want families in these homes. If you really believe in family values, and this is where Republicans should come along. If you really believed in family values, if you really believed and cared about the children, you'd get them homes. And that starts with a policy to build affordable housing, not these $300,000 places. I'm talking 100, 125 places that families can actually get a start with, especially young families now who have been, well, sadly saddled with a lifetime of student loan debt. I mean, there's just so much here, just so much. Going to take a quick break. Right back after this. Stick around. If you're just now joining us, make sure you download the podcast at thericksmithshow.com. Questions, comments, email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Thanks for being here. Going to take a quick break. Right back after this. Stick around.
Just like Daddy, huh?
They'll probably never know about his thousands of hours of on-the-job training.
There you go, Daddy.
Or that he spent as much time in the classroom as someone with a master's degree. You and I know he's one of the experts when it comes to electricity. Part of the team committed to doing the job right. They call him Dad. You call him the electrician right down the street. IBEW, the power professionals in your neighborhood.
The best way to strengthen America's economy? How about investing in America's fastest growing industry, clean energy? We're talking jobs, millions of them, the type that pay well and can't be outsourced. Because the thing about clean energy, it's all right here, American made. It means lower utility costs for families, and it's how we take on climate change. An investment in clean energy is a big win. Congress, let's get it done.
So some really good news here in Pennsylvania. And look, going back to the state system of higher education, it's so screwed up. The Republicans here in this state have so badly screwed up the state system of higher education. There are 14 owned state universities here, and they're the jewel of Pennsylvania. They're a place for. So they were supposed to be for working class kids to go get a good education. My wife was one of them. She was able to graduate without student loan debt, working, paying her tuition. The stat I didn't get into, back when my generation, I wish I lived in Pennsylvania back then. Back then, the state picked up 2/3 of the cost of the tuition. Student picked up a third. Today, the number is 3/4 of the cost of tuition picked up by the students, 1/4 picked up by the state and local tax base. There is something seriously, seriously wrong. But I wanted to throw a shout out to Penn State. The students there at Penn State this year, their dance marathon, thon, as they call it here, raised a record $13,756,374.50 to fight pediatric cancer. Great on them. There were thousands of families, thousands of students that got involved in it. I know in my community they were out there with their boots and their buckets, collecting change on the street corners, doing all of that stuff. But they have every year a 46-hour, no sitting, no sleeping, no anything dance marathon where the students all come together, all of the Greek organizations, all of them to push and to help fight childhood cancer. They have raised just an incredible amount of money. I was looking at the number. It was something like $200 million over the time that they've been doing this, over all the years they've been doing this. Like $200 million to put into this. This year was a record-breaking year, and good on them for the work that they do and for that. It's absolutely incredible. So good on the students there at Penn State. Great stuff. Love to hear things that are happening in your neck of the woods. You can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. If you missed any of today's program, you can do what? That's right. You can download the podcast. The podcast is wherever you grab your podcast. We are there, from iHeart to iTunes, from Podbean to Stitcher, and everywhere in between. You can find The Rick Smith Show Also, make sure this month, especially, it's Black History Month. Grab the Black History Month podcasts. We did those specifically for podcasts. Not something you're going to hear on your terrestrial radio dial. So by all means, grab that. Thanks so much for being here. If you need to, follow us on social media. We'd love to have you. At Rick Smith Show on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Like, subscribe, share, all of that stuff. Thanks so much for being here. We'll see you back here next time.
You've been listening to The Rick Smith Show. Email Rick at rick@thericksmithshow.com. Until next time, this has been The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.